Lecture 32 continues with prayer, and we will be looking here at the fact that there are two kinds of prayers. There is the duty prayer, which is the salah, but then there is a prayer that is something like how we understand prayer, but definitely an end note, not very important. Nevertheless, it is done. The Sunni, and I guess I should say too that along with the prayer there comes a lot of preparation, much emphasis in Islam as to how you pray. And when I say how, that really is the importance, how and when, and the ablutions are very, very important. The word salah apparently comes from the Aramaic. Again, look at how they have drawn from Judaism, even their words, though Muslims don't like to admit this, that they like to think of Arabic as a pristine language and every word is just Arabic. But the truth is that Arabic is linked to Hebrew, and there are a lot of words in Arabic that come from the Hebrew, like Sadiq or Sadiq or words like that. Now, in the prayer, there is something what they call the rak'ah, which is the set of bowing, prostrating, touching your head to the floor, and getting up again. So in a day, if you were to do all of your prayers, that would be a matter of 17 sets, which is quite a commitment, really, when you think of it. Bowing, prostrating, touching the floor with your head, and that's really quite a commitment 5 times during the day. Now, Shiites would do the same number of rak'ah, but would pray 3 times a day. You might ask, well, what's the rule, or where did they get this? Really, in the Quran, it's not specified that you pray 5 times a day. In fact, 3 sounds more Quranic than 5, but Sunnis have the majority. There are 85% of the Muslims in the world, and it is based on the Sunnah. In other words, the Prophet. That from the Hadith. That's the Sunni Hadith, the Sunnah, the Prophet, what he said and did, not on the Quran. In fact, I should have said that it's not clear in the Quran at all that you pray 5 times a day. Now, the call to prayer is given in different ways. Sometimes it's given in a tape, just a recorded message, but oftentimes it's given from a loudspeaker and in the city, the village, the town, and it is quite a challenge, really. I've heard the call to prayer so many times, having lived in the Muslim world for almost a quarter of a century. Think of all the times that we have heard the call to prayer as starting early in the morning, perhaps 4:30 in the morning, and frankly have been greatly challenged by it, challenged by the commitment. That call to prayer seems to speak of the power of Islam and the commitment of Islam as it's declared from the mosques. First, if you're sleeping on the roof, especially when you get that clear call to prayer coming from one mosque with a loudspeaker pointing at you, and then from the other, another, and pretty soon all around you, you hear the call to prayer echoing. I determined early in my missionary life to be up and praying as well to God through Christ, because why shouldn't I be? If Muslims can pray, we should pray even more. Here are a couple of websites. One is Answering Islam, which we've referred to before, answering-islam.org, where this came from. There's a quotation there of Sell's book. But then the Crescent Life, www.crescentlife.com/spirituality/living_character_of_Islam, Islamic tradition.htm. That has to do with azan, which is the call to prayer, where it came from. And it is obligatory. You can pray more than 5 times a day, and some do. I remember hearing a Sufi here in town in Columbia, South Carolina, saying that you can pray more than 5 times, and you can pray 7 times a day, but it still doesn't give you, it's not enough, he was saying. And I had a friend in Pakistan said that his mother prayed 7 times a day. I suppose she was going the extra mile. There is the first one that starts in the morning about 4:30, Salah as-Subh. Subh, you see, is morning, and that's Salah is prayer. Or they might call it Al-Fajr, which is early in the morning. There's no sun in the sky. You do 2 rakahs out loud, and the Fatiha is the opening, the first chapter in the Quran, which is quite a chapter, really. This one here, we compared it before in the beginning with the Lord's Prayer. And found some similarities. Praise be to Allah, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, most gracious, most merciful, master of the day of judgment. Thee do we worship, and thine aid do we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those on whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath, and who go not astray. So that's the first one. The second one is Salah Zuhr, the noonday prayer, when the sun has started to decline. Here, 4 rakahs are silently done. Salah al-Asr at 3:30 in the afternoon, again 4 rakahs and silently. Salah al-Maghrib, which is the prayer of the west. Now the sun is in the west, and this is the sunset prayer. 3 rakahs, first 2 out loud, the third silently, and then the Salah al-Isha at night, performed after the onset of night. 4 rakahs, first 2 out loud, and the last 2 silently. I mean, this takes a lot of time, a lot of commitment. Talk about duty, talk about patience, talk about faithfulness. This is a challenge to us. Now, you can pray alone, or you can pray the prayer that's led by an imam being the fellow in the mosque who stands in front of the group and leads in the prayer. That's the way they do it. He doesn't face the congregation. He faces the other way, faces actually Mecca, and they're standing behind him. Women are not generally there at all. If they're there, they would be off in a corner, or perhaps in a separate room. But where I was, the women didn't go to the mosque, unless on special occasions. Now, there are places in the world where you don't have the sun to go by, such as the polar regions, so they have to make some special circumstances to do it, but they do it in one way or another. On Friday, there is a special time of prayer. That's the Salah al-Jum'ah. Jum'ah is Friday, and so there's a time there. People who don't say their prayers during the week will probably do their best to do the Friday prayers and to join in with the whole congregation. Now, who is exempt? Well, the people who are exempt are travelers, and this dates back to the early days when it was such a job to travel and tiresome, and and you're traveling by camel or walking or something like that. Those who are in physical danger, those who are sick, those who are at war, and nursing mothers. But it is true that many do not pray, and you can drive around or walk around in the Muslim world and see that many do not pray at all. However, there's been a revival of prayer, and in the late 70s, this was one of the places that emphasis was put. In other words, strong encouragement to pray. In some cases, forcing people to pray, waking them up in the morning, or in some places of the Muslim world, required to pray. Basically, if you don't, you're beaten. So there is pressure from above to perform. And there is a revival of this, as I have mentioned. Now, there's another type of prayer too that is not emphasized and not so important in the sense of the real prayer is the salah, the ritual stuff, but then there is the dua, and that is special prayer. That is more heartfelt prayer, and it is permitted, even encouraged in some cases, where people will pray for different things. For instance, a mother will pray for her son that he will be successful in his exam. Now, Christians can pray. In other words, for the Muslim friend, often, as I said before, you can say to your Muslim friend, "Can I pray for you? Will you allow me to pray for you?" And they do pray. So let's keep that in mind, that you can pray for your son's exam. You can pray for other things. A mullah might pray for someone's death. I remember when I was over there, the mullah would wake people up in the middle of the night and ask them to pray for the death of one of the prime minister, because they thought he was such a secular guy. And he drank wine and stuff like that. This is what they would pray for. Now, there are other occasions too when you pray, like praying during celebrations. At an eclipse is mentioned, praying for rain, praying for repentance, praying at funerals. These are all special supererogatory prayers. And the picture here then shows a mosque, and it shows the characteristic minaret. The dome is always there too. There is a covered arcade. There's a fountain right there to do the ablutions. You'll always see this. There has to be a place to do your ablutions in large mosques. There are many taps in the courtyard. Of course, the entrance, and the prayer hall is here right in the middle. The minbar is where the fellow stands to give his Friday message. The mihrab is the little indentation where there is an arrow to look towards Mecca. That's very, very important. So that's the mosque, and when people say their prayers, some of them do it in the mosque. That's what's really the best, encouraged. Some people do it at home. But there are mosques all over the Muslim world, and Muslims do build mosques. They really do build mosques, and often at their own expense. Here in Colombia, I think of the perhaps 6 or 7 mosques now. The mosques that I know of often are built by some Muslim who's doing it out of the generosity of his heart, but definitely there is merit in it. The ablutions are of 2 types. First, there is wuzu, or wudu, whatever you want to pronounce it. In that, before you say your prayers, you do various things. Cleanse your teeth, wash your hands to the wrist 3 times, rinse out the mouth 3 times, you gargle. Water is placed sucked up in the nostrils 3 times, put over the face, forehead to the ears, wash hands to the elbows, water running down the elbow, behind the neck, between the fingers, wash feet between the toes, and a wet hand over the beard, and a wet finger in ears and toes. That's the one. Now, this has to be repeated if there are any bodily secretions, discharges, embracing a woman. I don't know who would be doing that, but vomiting, fainting, laughing, nosebleeds, or passing air. Then everybody has to go through the whole thing again in the mosque to repeat the ablutions. Now, ghusl is a complete bath. I apologize for my artist here has taken this picture of people having a mud bath. That's not really the kind of a bath that we're talking about. But ghusl is a more complete bath. And a complete bath is when you admit a new convert. In other words, if I was to become a Muslim, I would have to have a ghusl, a complete bath. Or when someone dies, there is a washing of a dead body. It's called tayammum, and that is a complete bath done by special people. In other words, older women would bath the female who has died, and older men the men. In other words, it's a special responsibility given to older people. Now, if there's no water around, sand can be used for a substitute, or when water is over 2 miles away. This is sounds pretty strange perhaps, but I think that came from Judaism as well, that you can use a sand substitute. You always need a covering of clean clothes. So the men will wrap their head with some kind of a cloth, something on their head. They will look for a clean place. They will preferably use a clean rug. In all the hotels in Muslim contexts have a little rug rolled up in the corner that you take out and use to say your prayers. When you begin your prayer, you begin with the intention to pray, like they do in an Anglican prayer book. So that shows you that it's not all outward. And there is so much emphasis on how you do it, on the mechanics of it, how you pray, how you stand, how you hold your hands. The Shiites don't hold their hands the same way that the Sunnis do. They hold their hands down at the sides, whereas the Sunnis hold them together. In other words, one over the right hand over the top. Very important. The manuals tell you just how to do it. Little children are taught carefully by their parents, mother presumably, showing the children how to pray and teaching them how, going through the mechanics. Salah is considered to be body, soul, and spirit, or body and soul and worship, adoration and submission, whereas again dua is an appendix. It is spontaneous. It could be for a sick child, but more than anything, it's not in the mosque. It's in the mazar. Mazar meaning shrine. In the, where there's a saint or somebody, that's where oftentimes people pour out their hearts. What to do about an oppression, a paralysis, a sickness, a mean mother-in-law, the inability to have a baby, and on and on. These are the kind of prayers, dua, that are offered, heartfelt prayers in the shrine. I have seen, I think, dua on the Hajj as well, on the plains of Arafat, when people solemnly wait before God. When God comes down, I see in the eyes, I see the movies, the pictures of their tears in their eyes as they wait and they pray for forgiveness and so on. So dua is not impossible. In other words, Muslims do understand that. So again, as Christians, we need to pray for Muslims in their presence. We need to make them understand, help them understand that we do pray for them. That is very important to do. Now, again, it's the Qibla we mentioned, always towards Mecca. The rakaz has to be done in Arabic. This is irrespective of the fact that most of the Muslim world is not Arab. They don't understand Arabic, but they have to memorize their prayers in Arabic. 15% perhaps of the Muslim world is Arab, but Arabic is the language of Islam. And not all Muslims are Arab. Not all the Middle East is Arab. And nevertheless, that's what's the rule. The procedure is in the class notes as to how you stand facing Mecca and bowing from the chest, bending the knees, and saying God is great, touching the forehead, heels together. When the Muslims stand in the mosque, they stand totally in a straight line, right, very, very close to one another. One one of the things that I've heard is you have to stand close to one another so that Satan cannot slip in between. You say God is great, then at the end you turn your right hand and say peace and mercy and God be with you, and then to the left the same thing. Peace be on you, O prophet. Muslims are always saying peace on the prophet. May God bless him and grant him salvation, which Muslims are always saying.